This is the Nacon Revolution X Pro controller, and it's not a good controller, but let me explain why. Now, the packaging for the controller was nice, and as you guys know, I am a sucker for good packaging. It was very colorful, clean, and glossy. Then once you open up the packaging, you'll get the instruction manual, and then you'll get this controller carrying case, and you guys also know that I'm a sucker for carrying cases. I think more controllers should have them, but once you open up that carrying case, you get the Nacon Controller Pro X. Now, the carrying case itself is a nice carrying case. It has a green inner lining. It looks very beautiful, goes with it very well. It also sports a pouch where you can keep your 10-foot braided USB-C cable. That's going to be very important later on. And then there's also like an underneath pouch for that pouch where I guess you could fit other things in if you would like. You also get this really nice satin Nacon Revolution X cloth that you can use to wipe down the controller, which is pretty nice. I like that they gave it to me. Feels nice, and I'll be using it to wipe down not just my Nacon controller but other controllers that I have. Now, the ergonomics of this controller is very off. This is easily my least favorite controller to hold. The biggest reason for this is the thickness of the handles on the back of the controller. Now, there is a reason for this. They want you to be able to put your own weights in the controller, which we will get to in a second, but the thickness on the back of the controller where the handles are, it's just too thick. It's like it just has a really big butt. It looks like a controller with implants on the back. Now, normally I like big butts. I like holding them, you know what I'm saying, whenever I get a chance to, but you know what I'm dealing with right here is just, it's too much. It extends my middle ring and pinky fingers so far, you know, outward from the controller, then it's really comfortable. Other controllers don't do that, so I'm not a fan of the build of the handles of this controller. Now, the handles, or maybe I should call them the grips, I don't know, but you know, the bottom part of the controller where you would hold it is thick for a reason. You're supposed to put these weights inside of the controller. Now, I don't know the purpose of why you would want to put weights in your controller. Don't get me wrong, it's not like you want your controller to be as light as a feather, but you definitely don't want it to be heavier. I don't know why a controller should ever be heavier. Like, I don't really understand the point of that, especially when the weight of the controller was fine straight out the box. Putting weights in the controller doesn't make it feel more premium. Like, is this what part of my $100 is going towards when I buy the controller? Now, if you happen to be a person that actually likes a heavier controller and this is beneficial to you, then hey, more power to you. But I know for most people, who cares about a heavier controller when the weight was good straight out the box? They give you options of 16 grams, 14 grams, and 10 grams. And again, it's an option, but I don't understand why anyone would want to increase the weight of their controller, especially for competitive players. That's something you guys will have to explain to me down in the comments, because I'm baffled. Oh, and while you're there in the comment section, remember to scroll up just a little bit and like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot when you do it, and I super appreciate it. Thank you. I do love the grip on the side and the back of the controller. It doesn't go all the way up to the triggers like you would maybe normally hope for, but it adds more than enough grip on the front and sides that I honestly didn't have much of a problem with. So I do like the grip on the controller. In fact, I love the grip. Now, the analog sticks of the controller are pretty regular. They're okay. They're not super stiff, loose, or snappy. They're just, you know, kind of standard analog sticks. I'm not a fan of the rubber compound that they use for the analog sticks. It just feels very cheap and plasticky. Not at all do I feel like I'm using a premium controller, but they do give you replacement analog sticks that are domed, and the domed ones feel just about as cheap, but funny enough, it kind of works. These are probably one of the few domed thumbsticks that I really like, but this is a personal preference thing. I can't really base my review off of these things that the next guy might really enjoy despite whatever I say. So I can't take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but all I can say is that it definitely does not feel premium. But they do come with precision rings. Now, these rings will reduce the travel distance on your analog stick, which is cool. I personally don't use them, but it's something that I'm sure some competitive gamers will have great use for. And the rings add 44 degrees of amplitude and 30 degrees of amplitude, which I think just means that one takes up 44 degrees worth of space, the other one takes up 30 degrees worth of space. That's about it. Now, I know a big question you're gonna ask is, can these rings be put on other controllers? Well, no. These rings could not fit on a single controller that I've reviewed on this channel. It just doesn't. And no, you cannot put both these rings on at the same time. It will not work. So you can't have a 30 degree and a 40 degree on the same analog stick. You can only have one or the other. Okay, now let's talk about the back buttons of this controller. It comes with 4, which on paper should be good, and I definitely like the top 2. The top 2 back buttons feel really nice right where my middle fingers would be. But unfortunately, the bottom 2 are just too low for me, or at least too low for my ring fingers. If you have great ring finger dexterity and strength, then this will be a nice placement for you. But for me, my pinky and my ring fingers have always been a little weird. They're not really that dexterous. Like, I just don't have that kind of hand. So yeah, for them to be this low was really uncomfortable. I found myself only being able to use the top 2. After a little bit of playing, I was able to get a little bit more used to the bottom 2, but the discomfort was definitely apparent and really never went away. So overall, the controller so far is just okay. The feel, the touch, the control of the controller is very regular and leans closer to the subpar, at least for me. But now let's get into the software side of this controller. So here we have the Dolby Atmos app for the headphones, where you're able to control the audio quality, you know, the equalizing and all these different things. And again, I've generally had a really good experience with the Dolby Atmos audio quality. You know, controllers with Dolby Atmos have not let me down thus far. So, you know, the quality of the audio was great. But the conversation now starts to become, especially as a user who has now 3 Dolby Atmos controllers, did audio quality really make these controllers worth it? Not really. Not really. You know, it's a nice gimmick to go by, but for most people, as long as I can hear what's on my left, on my right, in front of me and behind me, that's more or less all I can really ask for. Then you also have the Nacon Revolution app, which will allow you to customize your controller to a T about, you know, dead zone sensitivities and all that stuff. And again, as an owner of many controllers now, these softwares, does it really make a strong difference in the conversation of whether or not this is or this isn't a good controller? After about, you know, 10 controllers, I would say no. These softwares are, honestly, I'm starting to be, in my opinion, big gimmicks. You know, give me a controller that really feels nice. Give me a controller that clicks nice. Give me a controller that has physical trigger stops. Give me a controller that has good back buttons. And those controllers are honestly always going to beat out any controller that comes with a whole bunch of software that honestly adds to the problem than solves it. Now, with that being said, the software isn't too bad. Nacon was kind enough to give us 4 preset profiles that come for first-person shooters, racing games, fighting games, and infiltration games, which is pretty cool. I'm not mad at them for that, but again, like I said, big gimmick, because most people are going to just make their own profiles and rock with that for the rest of their controller's lifespan. So there you have it yet again. Now, the RGB option was pretty cool. I just wish I didn't need a whole software to get the most out of it. I think more controllers should have the RGB option built right into the controller so that I could just enjoy the RGB straight out the box, no software necessary. And that's the Nacon Pro controller. At $100, it just kind of fails at a lot of the things that it tries to do. Listen, it's great to have back buttons. I'm always going to be a big proponent of that. But when you have 4 and only 2 are really usable, that's not a good sign. But it's even worse when the handle and ergonomics of the controller are seriously uncomfortable. Then on top of that, the thumbsticks feel cheap, the triggers feel cheap. You gave me useless weights that, again, for me and a lot of other people, it won't be useful. And then you move to the software side, where if you're a software guy, this might really make the difference for you to make it a good controller. But for a lot of people, you know, we're not tweaking that many settings. You know, we paid $100 for a good feeling controller and a lot of things that should just be right out the box, right there in the controller, and we did not get that. So, you know, overall, I can't recommend this controller to anybody for any reason. And that's my review of the controller. I hope you have a great day. Peace, man.